how do you make smart choices without burning out? Like we make hundreds of choices every day. And especially with leadership, it's exhausting. So what do you do to help yourself not burn out?
I think the biggest thing for me is probably the over analyzing things. When you start to overanalyze, you really grind yourself out, and that becomes what you're talking about, that decision fatigue, where you have to kind of step back, find some sense of rhythms and routines, prioritize your stuff, like what's in your head. I mean, sometimes you need to just kind of delegate the task to people. Have those guys take care of some of that stuff. Have Doug, Sally, or Tommy, or whoever make the decisions for you. Whoever you trust. That's one of the big things there. You have to find some sense of solace in there, and take breaks, set some limits for yourself. The boundaries are huge, and you're going to have to reach out to people. I reach out to people all the time. I mean, whether it's my COO or my good friend Roger, who's a CEO, I talk to those guys all the time. They really help me as it relates to decision making, because you start to think and you're like, okay, but what if? Then you have all the worst case scenarios in your head. That's when you start to go kind of sideways, and the analytical part of your head starts kicking in, and then you think of everything that could go wrong, and then everything that could go right, and then you're like, okay, which one do I choose? Which one do I choose? So, it's kind of how it works for me. Other leaders might have different avenues of how to handle those things, but I just try and stay very easy, very fluid, very rhythm based, and it just makes it a whole lot helpful that I have a supporting cast.
You said two things that resonated with me. One, you said being able to prioritize. I think that's huge, because if you look at all the decisions you have in a day, not all of them are important, and not all of them need to be done right now. So being able to figure out what's necessary now, what you can do and put off later, and then, maybe what you can delegate is really helpful, at least for me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Somebody's always willing to help you.
Mhm.
You don't, I mean, you're a mom. How many different decisions do you have to make? I mean, do you say, my sister does the same thing with dinner for my nephew, my niece. She doesn't want to think about that stuff. It stresses her out.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, hey, what do you feel like, RJ? Hey, Allie, what do you feel like? So sometimes you just got to let people make the decisions for you. Otherwise, you're going to get into that routine of overanalyzing and thinking, oh God, what do I do? What do I do? It just doesn't make for a very good decision-making process.
That reminds me. So have you ever heard the phrase, if you want something done right, you have to do it yourself, or you do it yourself?
Terrible. Whoever came up with that is terrible. Absolutely terrible.
I hate that phrase. That's probably one of the things that was hardest for me with leadership, because I remember when I was a younger manager, I felt like if you want something done right, you do it yourself. But if you want something done right, you should teach other people to do it and then follow up with them. And once I figured that piece out, it was like but it took me I'm stubborn as it is. So it took me a minute to figure that out. But once I did, it was like, I was good to go.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. My stubbornness did not help me in that sense at all.